Hello student, welcome to EPG Pathshala. Myself Dr. Baljinder Singh Gill, Assistant Professor Department of Biotechnology, Punjab University, Chandigarh. And today I am going to discuss with you the module 24, that is the environmental remediation, pollutant remediation related nanoparticles. So let us start with the topic, that is the environmental pollutant remediation nanoparticles. So let us start with the introduction. First of all, because it is a environmental related pollutant nanoparticle that are capable of remediating this environmental pollutant, first of all we should know the definition of environmental pollution. Environmental pollution, it is undesirable changes in the environmental contaminant and that cause harmful effect to the living organism, that is called the environmental pollution. And environmental pollution, it is a big problem in the society, and now because due to the massive mobilization of natural resources and the synthesis of newly compound, a lot of environmental problems have been arising. The problem is worldwide and the number of contaminated sites, they are increasing day by day. And the preferable sink for this environmental pollutant or the contaminant, these are the water, soil and the air. So water, soil and air, these are the three preferable sink for this environmental contaminant. Because now no doubt there are a lot of treatment methods are available for the remediation of this environmental pollutant, and because due to their health risk, because nowadays the industry, these from where this environmental pollutant come from, these are come from the anthropogenic source due to the anthropogenic activity. And India, because it is a that is a developing country, so industrialization and anthropogenic activity, they are the main reason for the increase in the pollution. Because now the living organism, they interact with the environment, that is why because if the environment, there is change in the environment due to this contaminant, because the living organism, they are in direct contact with this, because living organism, they require food, that is come from the soil, water is also required, air is also required, and these are the three preferable sink for this environmental pollutant. That is why the environmental pollution, it is a very big problem. It is a major challenge for the researcher to clean this air and water as well as the soil. Lot of methods are available for the remediation, but these methods, conventional method that are used for the remediation of this environmental pollutant, they have their own limitation. The first one is these are not the cost effective, and second, they produce a toxic compound, because sometimes the toxic product formation, it is a more harmful than the raw material or the reactant also. Third one, it is a not an effective method. These conventional methods are not the effective method. That is why nowadays the nanoparticle, because of their unique property, because of their small size, unique property, as well as the characteristic property, they can combat with the environmental pollution problems. Now, the various environmental nanoparticle which are used for the remediation of this nanoparticle. Now the various nanoparticle which are used for the remediation of this environmental pollutant, these are the titanium dioxide, titania, it is also called titanium, and second one is the carbon nanotubes. Carbon nanotubes and titanium dioxide, they are most commonly used nanoparticle for the environmental pollutant remediation. Other are dendrimers and metal oxide, these are also used for the environmental remediation of the pollutants. Now, because they have small size and high surface to volume ratio, that is why they can combat with the environmental pollutant problem. Also, because of their high reactivity, due to the small size, they can react with the environmental pollutant, and they have the capability to remove this environmental pollutant or the contaminant from the environment. So students, now we will discuss about the learning outcome or the objective of this chapter, and what will the possible outcome after discussing this chapter. That is, the first one is student will understand what is the nanoparticle, various nanoparticle used for the environmental pollutant remediation. What are the various nanoparticles which can be used for the remediation of this environmental pollutant. Second one is, that is the application part. That is how they can, what is the overview of the application of this nanoparticle, various nanoparticle which have the capability to remove this environmental pollutant. And the third one is, that is the, we will discuss their structure of this nanoparticle, for example titanium dioxide structure and their synthesis method. Similarly, carbon nanotubes, their structure and their synthesis method, and dendrimers, their synthesis and their structure also. This we will discuss in this chapter. Now let us start with the first nanoparticle that is used for the remediation of environmental pollutant, that is a titanium dioxide. Now titanium dioxide is most commonly used for the treatment of environmental pollutant. Why it is most commonly used? Because of their unique property, characteristic property, that is a semiconducting. Second one is a, that is a they have the photocatalyst. That is a very important phenomena. They can act as a catalyst in the presence of light, that is a photocatalyst mechanism. Third one is electronic, and that is a gas sensing property. Now what are the advantages of using this titanium dioxide? Because it is the most commonly used for the environmental remediation. So the main advantages is, it is a less expensive, and second one is, it is a easily available, less expensive, and show low toxicity, less toxicity as compared to the other nanoparticles. Now in the nature, this titanium dioxide mainly exists in three forms. The first one is that is a rutile anatase, and that is a bruchite. According to their abundance, these are the rutile anatase and that is a bruchite. These are the three natural crystal structure or three form that exist in the nature of this titanium dioxide. Now let us start with this, that is a synthesis method, because there are various synthesis method available in the cited literature for the preparation of this titanium dioxide, and the most common, that is a sol gel technique, first one. Second one is a sol method. Third one is a hydrothermal method, and fourth, that is a chemical, that is a vapor deposition method. So these are the common method used for the synthesis of titanium dioxide. Now the important thing is that the synthesis method, it will determine the shape, size and distribution of this titanium dioxide, because shape, size and the distribution, it will affect the efficiency of environmental pollutant remediation by using titanium dioxide. Now we will discuss the first method, that is a sol gel method. Now sol gel method. Sol, as the name indicate, it is any nanoparticle suspended in the liquid, that is called the sol. Now when this nanoparticle agglomerate to form, that is a agglomerate to form the 3D structure, then it is called the gel. So ultimately in this form, in this method, the sol form, it is ultimately changed into gel form, and the reaction that is carried out, that is a hydrolysis and condensation. Synthesis of sol colloidal solution from the hydrolysis of inorganic metal salts. It is basically of two types. One is alcohol based approach and second one is metal alkoxide based approach. In the first, because this reaction occur in two steps, one is the hydrolysis and second one is condensation. During hydrolysis, metal hydroxide are formed which condense to form the metal oxide species. This metal oxide species further grow and form the titanium dioxide. So with increase in the growth of metal oxide, the species sol form that ultimately change into alkogel form. Alkogel form, it has basically two parts. One is solid that consists of metal oxide species in the three-dimensional network, and the liquid part that is solvent filling free space surrounding solid part. So after further polycondensation reaction, it continue until the gel form it change into solid by the expulsion of solvent from the gel pores. Actually, the expulsion of solvent, it is further done by the drying method. So ultimately, in the synthesis of titanium dioxide, the sol form ultimately change into, that is a gel form, that is a 3D form. So in the diagram, precursor, that is a mainly that is a titanium hydrolysis reaction occur, condensation occur, it ultimately, that is a precursor, it change into sol then further with the help of drying process, it ultimately change into gel form, and further drying occurred and it ultimately changed into titanium dioxide powder. Next method of synthesis of this titanium dioxide is a sol method. It is not a common method like a sol gel method, and it is also called non-hydrolytic sol gel method. In this method, there is a reaction of titanium halide with the metal oxide or organic ether or the oxygen donating chemicals. In the diagram, titanium, that is halide, that is reaction occurred, result in the formation of titanium dioxide. In this reaction, mainly the rate of reaction, it increases with increase in the branching of R group, and also the average particle size, because we have already discussed the synthesis method, it has a significant role in determining the size and shape of the titanium dioxide. So the average particle, it size depend on the halogen group, not on the branching of the R group. So researcher also added some type of surfactant to control the shape and the size of titanium dioxide. Also, it is not a common, most commonly it is not generally used method for the synthesis of titanium dioxide. Now, the hydrothermal process. Hydrothermal method, it requires the controlled condition. That is why the reaction is carried out in autoclave, that is made up of steel, and under the controlled temperature and pressure condition. And it is a most common method used in the ceramic industry, and in this process peptidation is required. And what is peptidation? That is the conversion of precipitate into the colloidal sol, that is called the peptidation. Next is a hydrothermal method, because we have already discussed, that is a first precipitates are formed, and from the precipitate, that is a colloidal solutions are, or colloidal sols are formed. So the first precipitates are prepared by adding isopropanol solution in titanium butoxide, that is the normally the concentration is 0.5 molar, into the double distilled water. Further peptidation, because peptidation, as we have already discussed, it is a conversion of this precipitate into the colloidal solute or the colloidal sols. So further peptidation of precipitate, it is done by the presence of, or by adding, that is a ammonium salt such as tetraalkyl ammonium hydroxide at a room temperature, that is around 70 degree, for the incubation of 1 hour. Next method is the solvothermal method. As the name indicate it, how it is differed from the previous method, that is a hydrothermal method. In the previous method, aqueous solution or the solvent are used, but in this case the non-aqueous solvent are used instead of aqueous solution or the solvent. Also, this method it is carried out at higher temperature, and wide range of organic solvent can be used because these solvents have a high boiling point. It can also be used for the synthesis of titanium dioxide by using this solvothermal method. Now the main advantages of this method, that is a solvothermal method, as compared to the hydrothermal method, it is a better control of size, shape, and even the distribution and crystal structure of the titanium dioxide nanoparticle. This is the advantages over the previous method, that is the hydrothermal method. So now that is a next method, that is a chemical vapor deposition. Chemical vapor deposition method, it is also a commonly used method for the synthesis of titanium dioxide. In this vapor deposition method, the vapor state of the material, it is condensed to form a solid phase by the chemical reaction. Actually, vapor deposition is of two types. One is physical vapor deposition. In the physical vapor deposition, physical forces are used to condense the vapor state of the material instead of chemical method or the chemical reaction that mainly involve in the chemical vapor deposition method. In this method, there is a reaction of, that is a titanium, that is a halogen chloride with the oxygen, or the thermal reaction of the titanium alkoxide is involved. In this chemical vapor deposition processes, they mainly takes place in the vacuum chamber, and in this process thermal energy heats the gaseous precursor compound that react chemically on substrate surface and drive the deposition reaction. This reaction mainly occurred in the presence of inert gas, and the inert gas that are mainly used are the nitrogen, argon, and helium. So it is also a common method, and this method is also used for the synthesis of carbon nanotubes, and we will discuss in the further how chemical vapor deposition method are also used for the synthesis of carbon nanotubes. Next method is the direct oxidation method. As the name indicates, it involves direct oxidation of titanium metal with the oxidant such as hydrogen peroxide, and the size and the shape again of titanium dioxide particle, it is controlled by the inorganic salt, because researcher they add a fixed quantity of or fixed amount of this inorganic salt to control the shape and size of this titanium dioxide particle. It is not a common method for the synthesis of titanium dioxide. And now next method, that is a micelles and inverse micelles method. As the name indicates, in the micellar there is a phase, that is aqueous phase, that is toward the outside, and hydrophobic, that is toward the core of the material or the substances. And in case of inverse micellar, the phase is reversed. Aqueous phase, it is toward the core of the particle, and that is a hydrophobic phase, that is toward the outside of the particle. Now micelles and inverse micelles, this method involve a chemical reaction for the synthesis of titanium dioxide. The reaction is between titanium, that is a halogen solution, and the ammonium in a reversed micro emulsion system, that is mainly consisting of polyoxyethylene and nonyl phenol ether cyclohexane and polyoxyethylene nonyl phenol ether. In this case, the concentration, or which are the factor that determine, or the parameter which determine the size, shape, and distribution of titanium dioxide nanoparticle, that are the concentration of the chemical, oxidants, ammonia, and the reaction temperature. These are the parameter which helps in controlling the size as well as the distribution of titanium dioxide nanoparticle. Next, that is most commonly used nanoparticle for the remediation of environmental pollutant, that is a carbon nanotubes. It is next to titanium dioxide that are mainly used to remediate the environmental pollutant. Now the carbon nanotubes, they are the macromolecule with small radius that is in the nanometer and the length is in the micrometer. The walls of this CNT or the carbon nanotubes, they are mainly made up of carbon atoms and the structure is hexagonal lattice and capped by the fluorine-like structures. And this structure is mainly divided into two parts. One is MWCNTs, that is a multi-walled carbon nanotubes, and second one is the single-walled carbon nanotubes. Single-walled carbon nanotubes, that is mainly consist of single slender graphene sheet that is arranged around the central hollow area, that is shown in the figure also in the PPT. And second one is the multi-walled, as the name indicates, two or more slender graphene sheet, they are arranged around central hollow area. So CNT or the carbon nanotubes, they are mainly two types. One is SWCNTs, second one is MWCNTs. And these both single-walled or the multi-walled carbon nanotubes, the formation or the synthesis method, they vary for both these carbon nanotubes. Synthesis. The most commonly used synthesis technique for the synthesis of this carbon nanotubes, these are the electric arc discharge, laser ablation and CVD, chemical vapor deposition method. Arc discharge method is a method where the direct current arc voltage is applied as shown in the figure across two highly purity graphite electrode, that is anode and cathode, which are separated by 1 to 2 mm immersed in an inert gas. Inert gas may be the nitrogen or maybe the argon or helium can be used. There is an evaporation of graphite anode rod and condensation of this deposit on the cathode rod. And the fluorine, that is also types of carbon nanotubes, are deposited as a soot inside the chamber, and multi-walled carbon nanotubes are deposited on the cathode wall as shown in the figure. And mainly helium gas are used as an inert gas for the synthesis of carbon nanotube using arc discharge method. It also occurred in a vacuum chamber. And the inert gas, what is the function of inert gas? It is meant for the cooling and condensation of sample, and helium is the best gas. And for the synthesis of single-walled CNT, graphite anode having a metal catalyst like iron or the copper or the cobalt, it can be used along with the pure graphite cathode. So in this method, the pressure and the type of inert gas, these are the two parameters which determine the structure of carbon to be obtained. For example, if the pressure of inert gas is 1000 torsion, then the material is the carbon onions or the soot. If 500, then it is a carbon nanotubes. And if it is a 20, then it is amorphous carbon are formed. So these are the two parameters, pressure and type of inert gas. It determines the structure of carbon to be obtained by the arc discharge method. Next method is the laser ablation method. It mainly involves the removing of material by using laser beam. That is why it is called laser ablation method. Laser beam, it vaporizes a graphite target along with catalyst, mixture of cobalt and nickel in an oven, because we are using catalyst, and therefore the formation of single-walled, that is a carbon nanotubes, are mainly formed. And in an oven which have inert gas such as helium or argon gas, to maintain the pressure that is around 500 torch at 1200 centigrade. A very hot vapor plume is formed which later on expands and cool quickly to condense to form the large cluster as shown in the figure. With the increase in the laser beam the power of the diameter of the tubes, it become thinner. So these are the parameter, that is a laser beam power. It determine the diameter of the tubes. As we increase the laser beam power, the diameter of the carbon nanotubes, they become thinner. So the main advantages of using this method, it is a highly yield, it produces high yield and low metallic impurities as compared to the previous method. And the main disadvantages of this method is that the synthesized nanotubes are not essentially state uniformly and contain some branching also. Next is the chemical vapor deposition method. Different types of chemical vapor depositions are catalytic. Actually, catalytic chemical vapor deposition methods are mainly used for the synthesis of this carbon nanotubes. If we use thermal, the plasma enhanced oxygen assisted, then it is called thermal plasma enhanced oxygen assisted CVD. If water assisted, then it is water assisted. Radio frequency, then it is radio frequency assisted. And if we use microwave plasma as a force for chemical deposition, then vapor deposition, then it is called microwave plasma. And final, that is a hot filament, if we use as a physical force or the force behind the chemical vapor deposition, then it is called hot filament chemical vapor deposition. So CCVD, that is catalytic chemical vapor deposition, it is most commonly used technique for the synthesis of carbon nanotubes, and it mainly involves the chemical breakdown of hydrocarbon on a substrate. CCVD of acetylene over cobalt and iron catalyst, it support on silica and zeolite, and acetylene, that is it is heated and decomposed onto the substrate. Since the carbon is able to make contact with the metal particle implanted in the hole, it initiates to create the carbon nanotubes, which are a template from the shape of the tunnel, as shown in the figure also. Next, that is a nanoparticle that are mainly used for the remediation of this chemical or environmental pollutant or contaminant, that are the dendrimer. Dendrimer, they are not commonly used for the remediation of environmental pollutant, but sometimes it will depend upon the type of pollutant. So dendrimer, they are the nano-sized polymeric radially symmetric highly branched monodisperse micromolecule. They are also called cascade molecule, and dendrimer, it is derived from the Greek word that is dendron, which means tree. So the structure, it consists of three distinct units. One is a central core unit, second one is a branches that attach to the central core, third one is the terminal functional group that are attached to the outermost series of the branch. As shown in the figure, there are three units. One is the core, second one is the branching point where the branches arise from the central core, third one is the terminal functional group or the generation number. Now the synthesis method. There are mainly two synthesis methods for the dendrimer. First one is the divergent method, second one is the convergent method. In the divergent method, as the name indicates, dendrimers, they are synthesis from the reaction of core with monomer molecule and new molecule, they grow towards the outer side. Second one is the convergent method. Here the dendrimer, they are synthesized from the end groups and progressing inward instead of outward. So there are two methods, one is divergent and convergent. Mainly used is, that is most commonly used method is a convergent method for the synthesis of dendrimer. Or here is, that is a most common example of dendrimer that are used for the bioremediation of pollutant, that is a polyamidoamine, that is a PAMAM macromolecule that are synthesized inwardly by repeating attaching amino, that is amido amine toward the starting amino or the ammonium core. So dear student, let us summarize this chapter, that is module 24. So with the development of this nanoparticle or this nanotechnology, the use of this nanoparticle for the remediation of environmental pollutant, it is increasing day by day. And the most we have discussed, the most commonly used environmental pollutant remediation nanoparticles, these are the titanium dioxide, carbon nanotubes, dendrimers, and we have already discussed their synthesis and structure also. Now we have also discussed their unique property, small size, high reactivity, semiconducting nature, and the photocatalysis mechanism shown by titanium dioxide. Now the important thing is the size, shape and the synthesis method. It will depend upon the type of pollutant we want to remediate. So ultimately, which method or the which synthesis method we will follow, it will depend upon the type of pollutant which we want to remediate. Thank you. That's all about the chapter. Thank you very much.